about each other? What's your favorite thing about me? What's your favorite thing about me?
I like that we can share shoes.
No, the fuck we can't. Like,
I'm just playing with that.
I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wanna? I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wanna? I wish I had a time machine.
Story time about meeting my mom for the first time after being told she was dead my entire life. So as you could have probably guessed, I grew up with my dad, who I've always had a kind of rocky relationship with, mainly because for as long as I can remember, he's had a drinking problem. Whenever he drank, he would always do things out of spite, like locking me out of the house on purpose, yelling at me for trivial things, including looking like my mom, and even going so far as to not buy groceries or food for the house, which usually ended up with me staying at my best friend's house just to get the bare necessities. It got so bad that when I turned 14, my best friend's mom ended up getting a hold of my grandmother, and my grandmother came to take me away from him. She had no idea what was going on in our household and was horrified when she found out. While staying with my grandmother for a few months, my dad would sometimes make appearances, but my grandmother would never let him stay for too long. She made it very well known that she felt like he was incapable of properly taking care of me, and I didn't disagree with her. However, it wasn't until my grandmother and I got to talking that she revealed to me that she had been trying to locate and contact my mother for over 2 years, just to give her updates about my life and me. Now, the reason this was so shocking to me is because my father had been telling me for about 7 years that my mother was dead. In fact, I remember being 8 years old and asking him about her myself, and he immediately followed up with, and I quote, "She died and she did it to herself, if you catch my drift." I cried all night, and I never forgot that day. For reference, I am now 21, and it wasn't until I turned 15 that I finally met my mom and learned the real truth behind my existence, like for part 2. As you could have guessed, I completely went off on her. It wasn't my intention to do so, but not only did she completely abandon me with someone she knew was an abuser, but she never thought to come back to check on me. Not to mention, with the looks of her house and her new family, she could have easily afforded to take me away from him, but none of that ever crossed her mind. So what was even the point of sitting down and having a conversation with her? She was only telling me things I already knew. I ended up storming out of there because she couldn't give me answers to the very logical questions that I was asking her. When I left, I felt like she wasted my time, and even more so, I was angry with myself for getting my hopes up thinking she was going to tell me something that was just life-changing. It was baffling to me that she was a disappointment as an abandoner and as a mom. Now, I know that's extreme, but it's how I felt. In the end, I came home to my grandmother and told her about the entire thing. My grandmother played devil's advocate, of course, but at the end of the day, we settled on the fact that it would not be beneficial for me to try to build a relationship with my mom. Or, well, I came to the realization that that wasn't what I wanted. Fast forward 7 months later. It's Christmas, and I get a call from my mom's new husband, and you'll never believe what When my mother's new husband called me, he was basically trying to invite me to Christmas, claiming that it would be nice for me to get to know my other siblings. I won't lie, I laughed, and let him know that his children were not my siblings, and that it would be beneficial for us both if he quite literally forgot that I existed. What caught me off guard was the fact that he kept asking me when my birthday was, and what all my mother actually told me. I was quite honestly going to tell him to go screw himself, but he had me curious, so I told him. He paused for a long time before telling me that he would really like to see me for Christmas. It was such a weird and cryptic conversation that I did end up going. I even decided to bring my grandma. She was not happy about going, but she put on her Sunday's best nonetheless and accompanied me to dinner. Our timing was impeccable because by the time we got there, the food was already ready. My mom looked kind of surprised to see my grandma, but in my opinion, she shouldn't have been. Either way, the dinner was so excruciatingly awkward that I ended up spending half the time looking at their tree and wondering if any of the presents under it were for me. But I was quickly snapped out of my thoughts when my mother's husband dismissed the 2 children from the table and looked my mother in the face just to ask, "Is Janice?" My grandmother dropped her fork and I nearly choked on my water. But my mother's new husband, we'll call him Brian, didn't even notice because he was so focused on my mom's face. After my grandmother finally regained her composure, she raised a brow in my mother's direction because she, like the rest of us, wanted an answer. I expected my mom to deny it, but instead she looked down at her plate and said, "I don't know." My grandmother was not satisfied with that answer. In fact, she urged my mother to explain herself. But after a few moments of her silence, Brian finally spoke up. According to him, he was aware that my mother was in an abusive relationship. In fact, he was one of the people that urged her to get out of it, not just for her safety, but because he was in love with her. He didn't deny that they were fooling around, but when my mother made it clear that she wasn't interested in leaving the situation she was in, he demanded that she choose him or my father. My mother chose my father, which was the last straw for Brian, and he left. A couple of years passed before he saw saw her again. And when she ran into him, she made it clear that she no longer had attachments with my father. He didn't even know I existed until last year when my grandmother got in contact with her about me. She told him that my father and her had a baby together and that she revoked her rights and moved on. But when I showed up on the doorstep, he looked into my eyes and saw the eyes of his other 2 daughters and started to question everything my mother has said so far. Now he wanted to know the truth, and so did the rest of us.
I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where I get a time machine? I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where I get I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine.
I don't know what's up with y'all, but I for one am very chalant. I tried to be non, but I'm passionate. I'm very, very chalant.
I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time. I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time. I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where I get a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. I wish I had a time machine. Where can I wish I had a time machine.
Volunteered to be a guinea pig for my little sister nail business.
I wish I had a time machine. Where can